Talk Real Estate with Sharon McNamara, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services.
Hi, I'm Sharon McNamara, and you are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. Let me share a little bit about my background before we get started. I am the broker-owner of Boston Connect Real Estate, a boutique real estate firm that is home to over 30 real estate sales and marketing consultants who service home buyers and home sellers throughout Boston, the South Shore, the South Coast, and Cape Cod. Our firm takes pride in assisting our clients in the next chapter of their lives by taking a holistic approach to their real estate endeavors. We believe that every move should be a moving experience. Every week, my real estate team member, Mary Baker, and I, along with the director of Boston Connect Real Estate, Melissa Wallace, provide you with our unique marketing approach to selling homes and share with you our expertise in navigating the home buying process. We like to mix it up sometimes, so not only will you hear our perspective on real estate topics, but you will hear the expert thoughts and opinions of some of our real estate agents at Boston Connect Real Estate and the preferred professionals that we trust. Be part of our roundtable. If you have any questions during the show, please call 781-837-4900. We'd love to talk real estate. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and wherever you listen to podcasts at Talk Real Estate Roundtable. If you would like a one-on-one consultation with me and my team or one of the dedicated agents at Boston Connect Real Estate to discuss your real estate needs, you can connect with us at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate.
And hello to all our South Shore neighbors. You are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable with Boston Connect Real Estate's broker team. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I am joined in studio with my team member, Sharon McNamara.
Hello, hello.
Hello. She's just getting situated. We are going to be joined by our other team member, Mary Baker, as soon as she, comes in on two wheels. For you.
She's out showing houses.
Yeah, I know.
She's doing her job,
Yeah.
Thank you for my coffee.
But we are joined in studio with a special guest tonight. Sharon, would you like to introduce?
Of course I would.
Guest?
This is like my main guy when it comes to mold, so I'm so excited to have him. I have Jake from ProEnviro here. You're the owner, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so we are excited to have you here with us tonight. And I know that we sort of fly in here and you're like, oh my gosh, we're already on live. We are on live right now.
Great. All right.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So as we're getting ready, Melissa is going to get us up and running on everything. And here comes Mary Baker. When she heard you were doing the show tonight, she's like, oh, I'll do the show tonight. And I was like, okay, I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. But she's like, oh, Jake's going to be here. So yeah, I know. She's like, oh, I want to give him a hug. I'm so happy to see Jake. We love our mold guy. We just want to make sure that you're talking right into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get everything onto Facebook. So you can follow us on Sharon Costa McNamara and any of the Connect pages. And hi, Mary.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
Hey, Jake, did you see something shining on her finger there?
Oh, wow.
We saw each other. I don't think we mentioned it, though. We saw each other recently.
Thank you. So we're going to be talking all things mold tonight. And I know that this was like one of your favorite topics, Mary. So you wanted to be here. I think it was because you wanted to see Jake.
I actually just saw him last week.
Yeah.
Was it?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were very impressed too, by the way. And we'll get into why they were so impressed. But he was like, oh my gosh, you just know everybody. We got a home inspection within a week. We got a mold inspector within a day.
It's who you know, and we know all the good guys too. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. But Jake, why don't you tell all of our listeners on WATD, and we are live on Facebook, to all our listeners there as well. Why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are, how you got started in mold?
How does one get a career in mold?
Yeah, I just woke up one day and I was like, mold, it is. And then how you went out on your own. Because I really am, I really want to tell you, it's like, I almost feel like I've taken a baby cub under my wing. You know, that's how I feel about you. And I support you in your business 100%. But I have to tell you, you are such a hard worker. And I honestly appreciate that more than anything. And Mary, Melissa, all of our listeners know
100%.
I don't invite just anybody onto this show.
Yeah, last week was her husband.
Yeah, last week was my husband. Yep. But if I'm going to, stamp our name on your shoulders, and allow you to take care of our clients, then you better be good. So I know that all our listeners know that you're terrific, but why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you very much. That means a lot. I mean, it's, we've worked together for many years, and, we want to continue many years, and we've had a great relationship, just throughout the years in general. So, no, I didn't just wake up one day and decide, mold, this is it.
Yeah.
I had actually, I used to own a landscape company, through high school, just kind of part-time, some side money here and there while working retail, on top of that as well. And a buddy of mine who was working for the company I used to work for, Indoor Environmental, had invited me to come and work because they needed some help, and I had nothing better to do. So I joined the crew on that August. It was about 90 degrees outside, and my first job was an attic.
Oh, no.
So, suiting up in a full suit with masks and respirator. It was definitely a little challenging and a little overwhelming.
Yeah, because 90 degrees in an attic would equate to how much? We just want to make sure that we get to all our Facebook Live people to see you.
To see your face.
Yes.
Yeah. What would that temperature be up in the attic?
Well, in the attic, it could be
120?
probably, an extra probably 15 to 20 degrees, plus being in a suit probably adds another 10 degrees to that. So on a 90-degree day, it's probably about 120 degrees.
Did you say that this was your friend that sent you up there? Like, welcome to our team.
Well, yeah, it was
trial by fire.
Yeah, trial by fire, and that's kind of how you have to go into this, because it's more of a headspace thing than anything else. You have to be mentally prepared to do this type of work. Of course, physical as well, but it's really a mental task. So starting out, with that, I wanted to quit my first day. I got out of that attic. I am not joking. I got out of that attic, and I looked at my friend Dan and I said, I don't think I'm coming in tomorrow. It was a Thursday, and he was like, well, tomorrow we have a basement, so just, stick it out. Sure enough, basement was a lot better than doing an attic. It definitely wasn't as hot. So and since then I just kind of rode through it. So I worked for John Mitten for about 4 years. And then when he sold his company in August of 2019, that's what kind of forced me to go out on my own and, decide to take the leap and to do the challenge and maybe go into business for myself. And things were great. It was definitely, looking back at it now, I mean, it definitely a great decision, but we went, keep in mind, August of 2019 going into 2020 of COVID, it was pretty scary because, we had new company, we don't have all the same clients that we used to. And it was a little scary. I mean, we treaded water, throughout, and, we came out strong and we were good. And recently, the beginning of this year, John Mitten actually came back and joined us. And
yay, we love John.
Yes. And having John back, as a partner too with the company, it's been really great to have him back. He's been a ton of help, and he's just so knowledgeable, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. He's just his trust and his knowledge and just his reputation in the field alone has truly gotten, where I am.
And I love that story because I just feel like there is always this path of why people meet people when they do. And, your story, a little bit like mine, I opened up Boston Connect Real Estate after being in the industry for, quite a while, 10 years. But it was 2010 and there was no place to go but up. That's how I looked at it. So there you were in 2019 into 20, worrying about COVID and business and everything. But I promise you, from one business owner to another, if you can get through those hard times, you will get through anything. Yeah.
And I think that that really showed it, to be able to come out of that, anybody for any business, especially small business, to come out of 2020 in general. That just shows you right there, you probably can get through just about anything.
Well, our job tonight, Jake, is to make sure that all of WATD land knows how much we value you and your company. And John Mitten, right? Is so he's partner with you now too?
Yeah, so John and I are partners.
Okay,
so,
okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So full circle. Did you keep him as an employee for a little while first? Did you say, well, listen, let's just reverse roles here for a minute?
there was never any of that, because again, John and I just, for just the relationship that we had for so many years, I never once doubted him that him coming back into the swing of things.
Yep.
It didn't even cross my mind that maybe I don't know if this is going to work or how it's going to be weird. It was like, all right, you're back. Here's the keys. Let's do this. You know, let's get back to where we were and pick it right back up.
Well, I feel like our team knows how that similarly feels. So that's really exciting. And I do want to let all our listeners know, I mean, there's no relationship. We only know him through like our business.
Oh, yeah.
Of, having, situations with mold. And every single time I call you, you always answer. Every single time I text you, you always text me right back. My daughter, Casey, recently had a situation at her apartment in the South End. And I called and you're like, yeah, I'll go in there. I'll be there. I can't get there today, but I'll get there tomorrow morning. And then, of course, we lost electricity. But you were so good to just like even follow up like, hey, is this going to be okay? Like, I'm really sorry. And I don't know, it just the way that you handle everything when it comes to appointments. You really are there for your clients. And that's really, really impressive to me.
I couldn't agree more. I can't say one more thing good that she hasn't already encapsulated. But so just with John too. So I didn't realize that he had come back until maybe sometime over the summer. He is one of those people who literally you talk about mold and his face lights up.
Yeah.
So like there's a passion behind his eyes for what he does 100%.
Absolutely. And again, he's been doing it, a lot longer obviously than I have. And because indoor environmental was around, John's listening right now. Sorry, I don't know.
Hi, John. Why didn't you invite him? You should have.
I did invite him. No, John's busy. John's going to hold down the fort while I'm away.
Yeah.
So we
divide and conquer.
Yes, John, we'd love you just as much. I promise you.
But yeah, no, he truly takes a passion for it. And continuing education over the course. All of us, all of our guys, and just truly knowledgeable in the field. And I have questions still. I come across things that I've never seen, and I'm like, my first phone call is John. It's John. Have you seen this? Yes, Jake, I've seen this. This is what it is.
He's
it's like
seen it all.
Should have known that. Okay, but no, John's truly has a passion for this stuff.
What areas does your company service?
So we service. So we're our office is in Hanover, and we service about a 75-mile radius out of there. Wow. So we'll go pretty much right up to New Hampshire, out to Worcester. We'll dip into Rhode Island, Cape Cod, and then basically anything in between.
Okay. And you don't have to be licensed or anything like that in the state of Massachusetts with mold. It isn't like lead.
Right. Mold is not a regulated state, and they actually don't even offer a license. If they did, we would obviously take that, but they don't even offer it. And just... It's kind of weird that they don't, because it's such a...
Well, you mentioned continuing education. So what is that? Is that through different, like...
Just for self-awareness, right?
Yeah, and that's basically what it is, because we're not forced to.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, no certification, no nothing is being forced. It's very interesting. It's kind of scary, because we come across so many other people in the field that do this, and just the things that we hear from clients or customers, and it's like, how is that even ethical? Just because of just either the process that they use or the products that they're using, or whatever it may be. But no, we do the continuing education basically for ourselves and make sure we're staying on top of everything. We're teaching customers when we're in their home or when we're talking to them over the phone. We need to have that education. We need to know what we're talking about, or else we're just providing a disservice for you if we don't know what we're talking about.
That's why they have the word pro in front of Enviro.
I just find that to be so interesting that you don't have to be licensed to do it, just because you think of, after a home inspection, if, there's mold and it needs to be remediated, as a listing agent or as a buyer's agent, you would say like, oh, by a professional, it needs to be done by this. We need the receipts and stuff. So it's interesting to know that, like, it's not
just anybody can go in there. But again, that's why, it is a very good point too, is, why we're educating our clients all the time on this, and, our WATD listeners and our Facebook listeners. Yes, anybody can claim to be this, but doing this the right way is imperative, right? So Mel, why don't we get into some of the questions that we have about, the whole topic. And if you have any questions for us, you can, George, we have at the studio, 781-837-4900. Again, that number is 781-837-4900. Or you can send us a little chat on Facebook at, I don't know, where are we?
Everywhere.
Yeah, McNamara Broker Team, Boston Connect, anywhere on Facebook. Sharon Costa McNamara.
Yeah.
Send us some questions for Jake.
Well, Sharon is titling tonight's show "The Dirty M Word," mold, because it's true, Mary. You do a lot of our home inspections for the team, so it's when you hear the M word, mold, during a home inspection, people can get freaked out. It's not just the buyers; it's also the sellers, because some of the times it's in places that the seller doesn't really go very often, so they might not know. But when people hear mold, they automatically think, "Oh my gosh, like it's terrible! It's the worst thing ever." So that's why Sharon's calling it the dirty M word.
The dirty M word. Oh, you can't. Okay, I'll change it. Well, it's a dirty M word, and it's almost like because after someone hears the M word, they say the F word.
All right, so let's sort of start off with the basics. What is mold, and are all molds the same?
Sure. So mold is it's fungi species. It's found actually in our everyday environment. A lot of mold types found inside are actually found outdoors, and they live in our environment. And most molds are pretty crucial to the environment outside. The issue is when you have the not so good molds that are inside your home. And typically what that is ones that are causing allergy-like symptoms or just health concerns in general. Those are the ones that we don't want inside our house.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so obviously everybody hears black mold. That's the not so great kind, but I'm sure I don't know, John had said at one point, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of mold. So are there like crucial more common ones than not so common ones, or the ones that you would look for to be a little bit scarier than the ones that are like, that's a common everyday mold. That's blue cheese mold.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, that's kind of how we look at it. In what John and maybe had mentioned in the past is, there's over 100,000 species of mold.
Oh, I had it off by hundreds and hundreds.
You just kept saying hundreds and hundreds. I'm like, is she ever going to say thousands?
There's a lot of mold out there. And again, not all of them are as bad as we think they are. And I think there's oftentimes people hear black mold and they get really nervous. And sometimes that phrase gets dropped by, especially in the real estate industry, gets dropped by maybe the home inspector, which we know can just really derail things.
That's when people say the F word.
Yes, exactly. And I think, and part of our job is to kind of make people aware. We always encourage, if you're ever buying or selling a home, give us a call. I think we should be paired with the home inspectors. Hey, we should be in there too. And just to kind of make sure everything's okay and not correct the home inspectors. We definitely don't want to do that, but it's more, hey, just, and we do have, some home inspectors that we talk to, frequently. And it's, hey, we want to make sure that the information put out there is correct. And again, black mold is one of those that you hear it, you freak out. Maybe a family member has had a terrible experience with black mold, or the worst thing you do is you go online and you type in black mold, and you're seeing Google things that, you see things that probably don't exist in that house anywhere.
And that's the thing. That's what's so difficult about, and again, I just have a new tagline. So John, feel free to use it. Like, no need to say the F word when you hear the M word, when you have ProEnviro, because, and that's what we always tell people. And I'll say, we always use Steve Cook from Imperial Inspection Services, and he's extremely thorough. But as we're going through the houses, he'll point out things and he'll say, it's like a mold-like substance. But he says right out loud, I am not a mold specialist. I am not allowed to tell you if that's mold or not. You should get a specialist. Yeah. So that's what I like about him being, and for us to say, don't worry, we got a guy. We got a guy for that. So, but people do freak out. And I think that people freak out about the thought of what it can do. And I gave you a pamphlet. I had Melissa give you like a package of stuff earlier, right? It's this new program that I found, but it's keywords with the word mold, that what people Google. That how many? That was like 14 pages.
Stack,
14 pages
of what people Google with mold.
Just the word mold and the questions that come up with the word mold in it on Google. Yeah, it's 14 pages long. Like
probably
a spreadsheet.
Can mold kill you?
Yeah.
You ingest it.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Right.
Well, even if you breathe it, but I think those are some of the things that we will talk about as well. I just want to give the number one more time.
Okay, go ahead.
781-837-4900. We would love to hear from you. So George is at studio. If you have any questions regarding mold or questions or anything that you would like to ask Jake, tonight is your night because we got the mold guy here with us.
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of point out that not all mold is dangerous. So it's obviously, it can be easy to remediate and sort of whatever the issue was that is causing the mold, especially like in the attic or anything, we'll get into that. That can all be moved around and changed and make so that it doesn't happen again. But I think it's important to say that not all mold is dangerous.
What about mold and mildew? Same, different?
I get this question almost every single day.
I already know the answer, but I figured I'd be a host here.
Yeah, I was joking with John before the show. I said, I guarantee this is going to be the first question I get asked. And I looked at the agenda and I'm like, there it is.
It's the first question we get asked too.
Sure.
Right?
No, and it's a good question. And I think the two are often very close related. Mold, mildew, is it the same? Is it not the same? What are the differences? And there's a lot of information out there regarding that. So mildew, everybody relates to like, oh, it's the little speckles that you see in the bathroom and everything else. That's actually not the case. That's not mildew. That is mold.
I knew that.
Mildew actually is almost like a gray color. It's not the little black stuff that we see like in the tile and the grout, things like that. And it actually turns to a white powder over time. Mold doesn't do that.
Okay.
Mold comes in many different sizes. Mold typically is three-dimensional. It has a growth to it. So it actually has, if you look at it, if you shine your light on it, it actually is kind of raised above the surface, depending on the mold type, of course, but that's typically an identifier of how you can tell it. And it's usually by color.
Yeah. There's been times too that I've actually I've sent you text messages when I'm in people's houses. Like, does this look like it to you? I know you can't tell from here, but I want to suggest that we have, him called out, to look at it. But most times we see it in the shower. You were just saying on the tile, but a lot of times it's up on the ceiling and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we're always looking at too is when that is freshly painted, that is really telltale for me to tell, okay, is there a fan in here? And we'll talk about how, some places are getting mold as well. But one question before I forget, our team does a lot of new construction. In fact, we have a new 92 unit subdivision in West Bridgewater. Cochise estates, right? Luxury homes and townhouses. So we, they have all kinds of new codes. And so we're seeing an increase in radon, but I'm wondering, are we seeing a decrease in mold in the newer construction homes, or does it have nothing to do with it?
Actually, it's almost the opposite. So I find that we actually are in more newer construction than older homes.
Okay.
And main reason why is everything's built so tightly. In new construction, everything's tight. That's how they believe that's the best. And we actually, again, we see ourselves more in those newer homes than we are in. Because
I thought maybe it would keep it more dry. I think about the old, I showed you downstairs here, we have that, fieldstone foundation type thing where the moisture is coming through that I would have expected. So I just learned something new. I love that.
Sharon. You're seeing it a lot in
Sharon, we have a call or question for you.
Okay, perfect.
So he wants to know, this is Jim from Plymouth. He wants to know about the plywood you see in the attic. Is it good or bad if there's mold there, like the dark color you see there?
Okay, well, thank you. We will, go ahead, you can answer that.
Sure. So, good or bad is more if you're asking if it's mold or not. So plywood in the attic, that's actually probably the main area that we're in most often. We're always called to an attic most of the time. And we're in the area in question is always the plywood. The plywood sheathing underneath the roof there's some dark discoloration. Is it mold? Is it not mold? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just moisture staining, or sometimes it's just the ink staining in the plywood. But when we do see mold in the attic, I typically say if you're going to have mold in your house, it's probably the best place to have it. And that is because of the surface that it's on. It's on that wood surface. It's kind of in a separate area from the home. It's typically not a livable space. I believe it should still be treated, again, depending on maybe who's in the home, because everybody reacts to mold differently at different levels. And that's first and foremost. And that's kind of how I always lead everything. But having mold in the attic, it can be an issue. And if you are seeing that mold staining on the attic plywood, it's probably best to have it checked out and confirm if it is mold or not.
And do you normally see it on one side versus the other, south versus north and all that?
Yeah, we typically see it on the shade side just because the sun doesn't really get a chance to dry it out. But I've been in plenty of attics where it's both sides,
everywhere,
top to bottom, black and white, and it's
Do you ever like go into someone's house and say, "Oh God,
why did you ask me to come here, Mary?
Why are you just noticing this?"
Not out loud. I definitely don't say that, but it definitely can cross my mind sometimes. And I mean, there's always different circumstances of why a home is like that, and oftentimes it's usually vacant properties that I walk into that are like, "Whoa, what's that smell, or what's going on here?" And that's typically because maybe there was a leak for a period of time, or again, just for it being vacant, nobody's watching it and nobody's seeing, what's going on.
We had that a lot, So when back in the foreclosure days, and I'm sure that John remembers these times too, a lot of these properties were being winterized, but really weren't being winterized. And then things were freezing and splitting. And that's what Mark and I talked about last week on last week's show. And it was like, so, wet. And so that moisture was like trapped in these houses.
Right.
And I have to tell you, I feel like I started, Mary knows. Mary has been down in basements before, and she's like, don't bother coming down here, because I react so immediately to it now. But there was this one time, it was a vacant property. I know I was one of the first people to show it after a very long time. My client was very big. She was very small. And I opened the door, and he was behind me and she was behind him. I've told the story so many times, but I'm not kidding. I feel like when I opened the door, when they talk about fires and that the backdraft,
Right.
Both of us got sick. She was fine because she was hidden. But is that even possible? Or was I dreaming it? Because we were so sick.
No, it's definitely possible, especially if it's been kind of trapped in that area. And as soon as you open that up, just the aroma and almost kind of that rush of what was that?
Oh, you could see it.
Yeah.
The place looked like a hazy. Yeah, it was. It was like all the walls. All the walls. There's a house in Pembroke I could show you. Next time we go by it, I'm going to show you that one. It was one of them. And it was.
Just don't disclose the address.
Yeah, no. It was really nasty. It went into foreclosure. So, all right. So thank you for that call, for that question. But that is when we most commonly will see it.
Yeah, I think
in the attic.
Usually it's the mold-like substance in the basement where you see some water staining that you can see, your drywall is really typical to kind of wick moisture, and then you have a mold-like substance that's being created, or in the attic.
Right.
I mean, we just had you and John out within a week of each other at two different properties, one for a basement with that black substance, and then one for an attic. And you kind of pulled down the attic and you looked up and you're like, yeah, that's mold.
Yeah.
and that was a newer construction house. So 2005,
wow.
I think, or 2000, actually even older, 2008, I think it was built. So, and I think, are you going there tomorrow?
Is it tomorrow?
I think it's tomorrow.
I
think it's tomorrow.
Yeah.
He's going there to remediate tomorrow.
Yeah.
But that's, think about that. That was the 2.5, 3 week time period that from inspection to getting you out there for a quote and to having that actually fixed, which good job.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and one of the other things too is, and again, we've brought this up with other people that we've had on. And one of the things I love is, we had a situation in Hingham one time where the buyer's agent, we were the listing agent on Wampatuck.
Oh, yeah.
And, they said that there was mold in the attic. And I asked you to go out and you met with my good friend, Bobby Davis, if he's listening. And you went there and you're like, no, it's not mold. It's just not. And he was like, well, what do I owe you? You know what I mean? And you were just like, don't worry about it. I just came here to look, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying your services are free for everybody, but you just happened to be in the area and you were doing me a favor. But I love the fact that you said, no, it is not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you could have easily said it is, because how would we know?
Yeah.
So I love that.
That is true.
A non-alarmist approach is what I like to say.
Well, it isn't, you know what I mean? He's not going to lie, where we just said nothing is regulated. So you could easily be taken advantage of. And that's why we only refer the best of the best.
Yeah. Is there any other ways to detect mold that you want to talk about before we move on?
I mean, so first and foremost, typically, well, how we would get our initial call out there is we typically start with a visual look. And there's a lot of argument, I guess, in the industry of, you have to test it, you have to test it. And while mainly that is true, typically going out to a property, I mean, most of us can kind of identify what mold looks like, especially if you are a certified mold inspector. You could definitely, get a visual look to know what the mold type is and how much there is. Yeah, you have to test it beyond that. But between visual, some mold types can definitely give out that kind of musty, dominant odor. So, I mean, one way to be, I guess you can kind of smell it. But yeah, I mean, between that, so between testing, visual look, and even some odor can typically identify a mold issue going on.
Do you do any of that testing aspect of things too? Like where you send it into a lab and all that? Like, would you just scrape it or what do you do?
There's a few different methods. The two most popular is typically taking a direct sample. So usually like a tape lift or a swab sample, and you're physically touching that substance, whatever you're testing with that testing unit, and you're going to send that out to a lab, and they're going to analyze it, tell you, is it mold, is it not, what mold type it is, and if there's a lot kind of going on.
So here's the thing. I mean, like you said earlier, does it really matter? You don't want it, right? You don't want it either way. So does it really matter how high it is or how low it is? Like, so how much it must cost extra for the testing, obviously.
Right. So going back to the couple different ways of testing, one being a direct sample, there's also air quality testing, and that's actually what we do a lot of. That's something that I believe is more important. It's more, what are you breathing? What's in your air?
Yeah. Especially if somebody's been sick.
Yeah. Well, that's what I sort of wanted at Casey's, because they're still sick.
Right. And an air quality test could typically identify a mold issue that you may not be able to see. Or if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. And I mean, a single mold spore is similar size to a red blood cell. So you can't see it to the naked eye. It's when you do see it, it's typically clustered thousands and thousands of spores together as one. That's typically, how much mold you have going on.
Hey, Sharon.
Yes.
A caller called in and they want to know what the name of the company that our guests today are working for. Just shout it out on the air.
We are happy to say that again. Go ahead, one of you guys.
So we are with Jake Turner from ProEnvironmental. You are one of the owners of ProEnvironmental, correct?
Correct.
You and John Mitten.
Yes, John Mitten and I, we are managing partners of ProEnviro, correct.
ProEnviro. So I keep doing environmental.
It's okay. It's all right.
No, I keep doing that because of where you started.
Environmental.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like a mesh between the two. So that's okay.
Enviro. I like that better though. ProEnviro. Your website is nice too.
Now that Mary has got it.
Sorry. In my new tagline.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Sharon. Give it one more time.
You don't have to say the F word when you hear the M word.
That was a little
when
different.
you have ProEnviro.
When you have ProEnviro. Oh, you should do a commercial for them.
You have a jingle now.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
We haven't had one before.
Well, you have to ask John to call in and say what he thinks about that jingle. John, call us at 781-837-4900. Maybe he can pipe you through. If not, call one of our cell phones and we can talk to you that way.
That's so funny. I know that we talked about a couple, but where do we most commonly see mold inside the house? Or even a garage or a shed, or where do we see it?
I mean, so the everyday, I think the two biggest areas, or really three, is attic, basement, crawl space. Typically the areas, the less time you're spent in. Dark, damp, humid, they have those environments where mold can thrive. Of course, we can see mold in the main living areas, especially, areas like bathrooms or in the kitchen, maybe underneath the sinks. And if you look why, it's where there's a lot of moisture. Where is there water? Where is there dark, damp spaces that mold can thrive and can grow. But those would be the main areas that we typically see mold.
Yeah. And it is really important to, remediate it, because it can make you very, very sick. Right. Whether you have, asthma issues or allergy issues or anything. I mean, it can cause cancer, can it not?
So again, I always say that mold, everybody reacts to mold differently at different levels, different mold types. And that's how I always have to start it, because I can't necessarily, so if I do a mold inspection, I can't necessarily walk in there, look at some mold and be like, it's not that bad. You're fine. Don't touch it. And then that's not really my job either. My job is just to identify the mold if there is any, and maybe recommend how to treat it or propose a plan for us to treat it for you. That's really my goal, and really the only goal that I have.
Yeah.
I don't typically get into should you treat it, should you not treat it, and for why. All I can do is make a recommendation of, hey, if you do have asthma, or if you have children, or if someone's immunocompromised, someone that can likely have allergic reactions to mold, you should probably have it taken care of. And as far as can it cause cancer, can it cause this, mold's one of those things where it just affects everybody differently. And it's such a vague answer, but that's just
it's
a good answer.
It's the truth. It's just like having seasonal allergies. Some people get them really, really bad, and others aren't affected at all. And then some, that's it.
That's it.
And then she found $5, and that made the story better. But I'm telling you right now, even just talking about this M word, my sinuses hurt.
I know. I'm thinking about how I need you guys to buy me Allegra D this week.
Doesn't have a problem, guys.
So how do you remediate mold?
Yeah. So going, I guess, a little back to Massachusetts is not not one of the regulated states. There are regulated states out there, New Hampshire being one of the closest ones. Standard, so there's protocols set by the IICRC that is set a standard of how you should remediate mold. And basically how that goes, so say if we're dealing with mold, we'll go back to the attic. Starts with, and how we do things is we start with floor protection from the front door all the way to the space that we're working in, so we're not tracking in any dirt, any debris. Technicians will go up there, seal themselves in with plastic to create a barrier, and to really, create a containment area for the mold. The last thing we want is to disturb anything or cross-contaminate anything in the area.
Because how easily will it spread? That was one of my questions. So if you have it without collar, you have it on the ceiling, but that's where people are keeping their Christmas tree and their suitcases and things like that. So how soon, it gets on that stuff too, right? You got to throw it all away?
Not necessarily. So if we're going to the attic and you have Christmas decorations up there, which people are going to be grabbing pretty soon if you haven't already.
Yeah.
You open up that pull down ladder and you have mold up there. Everything's already in the air. Everything's airborne. Everything's rushing out. Everything is now in the air down to you. And it's nothing to necessarily be scared about right away. Again, everybody's different with mold. And it would, it would be on the contents, it would be on those areas, but really what it comes down to, it's the environment that those items are in. So if you say were to take a piece of moldy drywall from the basement and you brought it to the upstairs, it's going to probably play a role in your indoor air quality. You're probably going to be able to smell it. You might feel it, but that mold isn't just going to start jumping place to place to place, because the environment in your main living area is probably not one that mold likes to live in. It's dark, damp, there's moisture and high humidity, really, too. Humidity over 60% allows for mold to grow. So again, if you took that drywall out and you put it in your living room, it wouldn't just jump to the couch. It wouldn't jump to the carpet.
It's not like head lice.
Right. No, definitely not. Definitely not.
It's just jumping all over the place, and mold spores everywhere.
That's good to know.
Right.
Good to know.
Very good. So you can clean it from a surface. So in Sharon's case of the suitcases, I've even seen that in my basement where we had, before we put a dehumidifier down, you could see that our suitcases were growing just they were getting damp. So we removed them from the space, washed them down, and then obviously it was fine to use. And then we put a dehumidifier down there and they're fine.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they can be cleaned properly, and most of the time they can be.
Yeah, this wasn't like a fabric.
They had straight bleach all over their stuff. No?
We just bleached the whole place and everything in there.
So there's definitely some surfaces, some materials that might be beyond salvageable. Big things, we typically come across, in basements or wherever we're treating in the home. Couches are extremely hard to clean. The outside of them, they look great, but you don't know what's going on inside that cushion, and you can't typically just get to that either without having to rip open the couch. It's one of those, there's definitely some things that we're probably wouldn't save that. But for materials that aren't as porous, or that, we can treat, absolutely. And everything can be treated.
With the attic, again, you're listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable here with the McNamara Broker team. I am Sharon McNamara, broker owner, along with Melissa Wallace and Mary Baker. And we have our special guest with us tonight, Jake Turner from ProEnviro. And we'll be sure to give all of his contact information after the show. If you want to take stupiest notes, again, you can listen to our real estate replay every Saturday from 12:15 to 1 p.m. on WATD as well. Or you can just find us on Facebook and watch the show again, because we literally have 7 minutes left. So I want to talk about the question Melissa just said. All right, so we have it up in the attic. It's on the sheathing, right?
Yep.
What do you do? So you started to talk about that. You block everything off.
So we seal ourselves. And now that we're sealed in that area, it's a series of steps. Typically, you would HEPA vacuum all the surfaces, remove any surface growth, and that kind of helps remove the surface layer. Then you would so what we would do is we apply an oxygen-based cleaner to the wood itself, and that'll kind of lighten up a lot of that staining, that discoloration that you see. And again, kind of agitate that. So in this scenario, it would be the plywood. We'd really want to agitate it so that we can now get a chance to get to the root structure of the mold. And then we would use a product that can actually attack and break down the root structure, and thus eliminating any mold growth in the attic.
So are there any like chemicals or anything that you're using that are toxic?
So we always try to avoid using a toxic material at all times. I mean, we kind of pride ourselves on using plant-based, non-toxic products. And again, we kind of start with that oxygen-based, which is like a peroxide cleaner. It's always the first go-to. It's cleaner, it's safer to use. Sometimes there's some staining that it's really stubborn. So you might have to, you may have to boost it up a little bit and go to another more aggressive cleaner. But again, that's not necessarily, so you guys had mentioned, joked around using some bleach, and you do bleach everything. And that's actually probably one of the worst things you can do.
I feel like that's what every homeowner thinks. They're like, I'm just going to toss some bleach on it.
So why? Tell us why.
So bleach, about 90% of bleach is actually water. So if we're thinking about it, we're actually
putting water on mold.
On our mold, and
like gasoline on fire.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gasoline on fire.
Yeah.
So really what it's doing, it's removing the color. And yeah, it looks great when you hit it with bleach, but typically if you look,
can you tell if somebody did that?
Oh yeah. We've been in attics, like, home inspection time. We go up there and you see it. You see some maybe some staining, streaking the plywood. The plywood wasn't cleaned too well.
So we just have a couple more minutes. So let's sort of wrap up this part.
Can I ask a question while we're still up in the attic? What are some of the things that cause the mold up there?
I guess one of the main reasons typically why we get mold up there there's two. Bathroom exhaust vents, probably number one. Typically those vents get disconnected, or they were never ducted up there to begin with, or meaning that they actually weren't ducted outside. So they probably just left an open vent right into the attic space, or maybe that vent got disconnected at some point and ducted into the attic and causing a lot of moisture, humidity to sit up into the attic and to grow over time. Also, typically just poor ventilation, improper ventilation. Again, if that moisture can't exhaust itself over time, it condenses onto the plywood typically, and it would and so typically those are the two main areas that we see. It's a ventilation issue, or it's a bathroom exhaust issue is typically the main two that we see.
Yeah. So what are some of those fixes too? Because I know even the house that we were just in, it wasn't really a ventilation issue per se. It might have been like an over insulation issue preventing proper ventilation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like I had a client one time who put insulation in all the soffit vents because he saw light.
Yeah, so some of those fixes, so the bathroom one's pretty easy. Just put a vent on it and vent it out.
Do it the right way.
Do it the right way.
Yeah.
And then so the one that we were just in, the ventilation was there. So they had soffit venting, they had ridge venting, which is ideal. But all the insulation was stuffed down a little too far into the eaves, and it was actually blocking a lot of the ventilation coming through. And a quick fix for that is to install some soffit baffles that go right under the plywood that leave kind of a little gap or a little channel for airflow to come in. And then just make sure the insulation is pulled back just a little bit so you just start to see some daylight again down there.
Yeah. And that was such an easy fix.
Yeah. Do you take care of that aspect of things, or do you take care of all that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So we would do all that. The bathroom vent stuff we typically won't, because that involves, so if it's going through the roof, you got to cut a hole through that. Typically we recommend a contractor to come out and do that.
Yeah.
But as far as the ventilation goes, putting in the soffit baffles, we can definitely do that while we're up there.
And I know you put in professional dehumidifiers and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so for basements typically that have high humidity issues or a lot of moisture typically, and we recommend putting in a dehumidifier down there.
Hopefully you'll be putting one in the south end for us, for Casey McNamara. I'd love to have you come back, and maybe John would join you as well.
Sure, yeah.
And we can continue on with this conversation because it's such a good one and the show is so short. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.